Okay, I will call the Administrative Services Committee meeting to order. It's July 2nd. It's about 8:35. Roll call, Paul.
Here.
Eric.
Here.
Ann. Here. And I'm here. Can I have a motion to allow Terry and Matt Kunkel, and I thought John Collins was going to join us too. Oh,
He won't.
He's not coming? Okay. Well,
I'll make a motion
okay.
to allow them.
Okay, I made the motion. Paul second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. You're welcome in, folks. Thanks.
Thank you.
Nobody signed up for public comment?
We have none.
Okay, member
Alex,
comments?
Will, sure. Okay.
Any member comments?
Parking lot looks
I'm going
nice.
to go down to routine consent
Shall we need the
agenda.
minutes approved?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I have a motion to approve the
So
minutes of
moved.
June 4th? By Pam, seconded by Eric. Any changes or corrections to the minutes? Not seeing anybody. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
And the minutes are approved. So now routine consent agenda. Anybody want any of those 3 items pulled?
I'll make a motion to approve the routine consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second? By Paul. Roll call. Pam?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Matt? Terry?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, so the consent agenda is approved. Which brings us to Mr. Terrio.
All right.
Can I come on up and...
You want to do your PowerPoint?
I'll do his risk management PowerPoint.
And
All right.
there we go. Let's piece that away.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to meet. Again, last time I was here, we had an informal discussion on compensation, and today I brought you a presentation that doesn't want to move all of a sudden. Greg, any thoughts? Oh, wait, here it goes. I wasn't pedaling fast enough. There we go. Okay, great.
let's also minimize that. I thought I already done that.
You did, and I was trying to see if maybe I was. All right. Boy. Okay, it's still not going.
Can you use the clicker? Okay, all right, here, let's do this.
Oh, wait, you know what?
We have to make this, we have to make, yeah, the window. So let's make sure we do that, except I don't know where your mouse is. There we go. All right, now try.
All right. All right. So we're going to take a walk through the methodology, current situation, shrinking dollars, some other considerations, and then kind of wrap it up with the bottom line. And as I started doing this, this was initially really to talk about me and my role specifically. As I dove into it some more, really, I think the approach could be used for any of the elected officials. So as we go through, I think you'll see where that is the case. So starting with the methodology. So again, it starts off with a little bit more about me than perhaps others, but in the past, I know there's been comparisons to other clerks, and that doesn't work for a number of different reasons. First off, their pay is frozen for 4 years like mine, and clerk responsibilities vary a great deal from clerk to clerk. So some have recorder responsibilities, some have election responsibilities, some have neither. And in terms of elections, some have a partial responsibility. So it varies considerably from clerk to clerk. And similarly, the cost of living varies a great deal throughout the state from county to county and market to market. So what do? So I looked at other department heads in the county that seemed like an appropriate cohort. We have a lot of the same social pressures, we live in the same market area, have very similar responsibilities. And so we looked at the growth of those department heads over time. We started with 18 department heads. We removed from them 7 department heads that had dramatic changes in roles since 2018 or simply weren't comparable. So, like, yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
step in for 1 second, just to kind of level set for
Sure.
everybody? What's going on? I apologize. Just give me 1 minute. We have, the board has an opportunity to reset 3 elected official positions: the clerk, the recorder, the sheriff, and the treasurer. Okay, so we're not talking about everybody else. Those are the 3 positions that can be set. And you want to go over the timing of that?
6 months, 180 days to be specific, prior to taking office. Although I think typically, historically, we've done it before the primary election.
Those 3 positions are set right now by resolution to move at an indexed rate. The current, I'm sure you're going to get to this, the current salary is $114, so pretty low, right? Well, for the clerk and the treasurer, or the clerk, recorder, and the treasurer are $114, and they'll be indexed at 3% or CPI, whichever is less, for 26, 27, 28. And that's going to happen if you don't do anything, right? But you have the opportunity now to make an adjustment, and the timing is good. We're going to have people passing petitions as soon as August, right?
August 5th.
Right, you know, to get on the March primary. So it's opportune to look at this now. These must be filed by the end of October, right, to get on the March primary. So it's important for people to know what they'll be running for, but it's also important we're setting salaries where people will be sworn in December 1st, 2026, right? So it's not about Joe, it's about whoever's going to be sworn in 2026. I'm sorry.
No,
It's
don't be sorry. No, that's great.
So
That's great. Yeah, that's perfect.
it's that lens that we're looking through as Joe's talking.
Right. So we looked at the department heads and we removed 7 that didn't seem really fit for comparison. So Pete, for example, other department heads who were recently promoted, like Suzanne, so her growth is going to look substantially different than someone who's been in the role since 2018. And then we plotted the wage growth from 2018 through 2024 for this group as a basis for comparison. And then as a sanity check, we looked at the Bureau of Labor statistics, and it seemed to track that pretty closely as well. And then we applied a 3.5% merit increase for the next 2 fiscal year periods until 26. And so this is sort of what that data plot looks like. So those green bars are the growth in dollars of the other department heads. The reddish brown bar is the clerk, and this would also apply to the treasurer as well. And so that was about 26% that the others have grown, while the clerk and treasurer have grown about 8.1%. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the dollar's purchasing power, notice my fancy animations, have gone up about 26% since 2018, so that tracks pretty well with the growth of pay for the other department heads. So that's an indication that the county is doing a pretty good job in terms of matching the inflation against the other department heads' dollar growth. Some other considerations, again, this is more for the clerk. According to the Brennan Center, 40% of election officials have reported feeling threatened on the job, and more than a third of top election officials across the country have resigned or retired since 2020. Will County, Union County, Rock Island County have all quit and or announced that they're not running again in the past 6 months. So the bottom line, just to sort of summarize, the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that dollars decreased by 26%. The McHenry County Department Head peer compensation has grown by about that same amount. In 2018, the clerk assumed responsibility for the recorder's office in addition to previous duties. The role has become considerably more challenging, only had a nominal pay increase, and as Pete indicated, that would continue given the current resolution in play. And so we're proposing an annual pay rate of $154, beginning with FY26, with annual increases that match the county's ongoing non-unit merit increase rates. So what would be
like 27, right? So
it would be 26, right?
25 now.
Right.
You can't change your salary.
No, right. Sorry. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
That's 27.
27. And so the other difference is that rather than the lesser of CPI or 3%, it seemed to make sense that it should match the county's ongoing non-union merit increase rates. And as I alluded to before, I think most of this you could apply to the other elected positions. In fact, even your own and the board chair in terms of how to manage pay going forward. So that's it in a nutshell. I didn't put together a resolution. I could do that if you would prefer that I do that. I mostly wanted to talk through the thought process and the methodology, and then take whatever questions you folks have.
We've got how yours is. If we applied the same stuff, the sheriff, for instance, has a whole bunch of stuff from the state. I'm sure it's not just from us.
The sheriff and the state's attorney have a different
Completely different, yeah.
arrangement. Right.
Treasurer, I believe, is like you in terms of it's controlled from this chair or this office, not from where I know the sheriff's got a whole different.
The sheriff and this changed since we initially set elected official salaries 21 for 22 to 32. The sheriff's salary is now 80% of the state's attorney's salary. Yep. And 70% of that is paid by the state? 60%. So the sheriff is, do that again, whatever the state's attorney gets, the sheriff gets not less than, if the county pays 80%, you don't have to, but if the county pays 80%, then the state will pay 60% of that number. The state's attorney got a raise yesterday. The number is about 217, right? So the sheriff got a raise yesterday at 80% of that.
I'll talk, because I do. Joe, I'm going to say thank you for all the effort and the work. And I absolutely have no issues with you bringing forward the request. You've taken on a huge amount, reduced expenses. I just have to also point out that we're looking, again, at some significant financial restrictions. And we're going to be having significant budget conversations about, reducing or limiting. And personally, and you've heard this before, we'll talk about it later today, I have a real hard time from a perspective of looking at increasing elected salaries right now you can talk throughout the thing. If we're talking about reducing, and there was 6 people who wanted a 3% reduction, I have a real hard time incorporating that in a budget when I'm also looking at reducing personnel in other departments, et cetera. Not to say I'm saying no, because I do think it's a realistic ask. I just think it's really hard right now to incorporate those conversations for elected officials when we're talking about reducing expenses in other areas. And our job is to provide services and programs for our constituents, right?
Right.
We're public servants.
Right.
So I just want to know that that's out there.
Sure, no, and I fully understand that, and that's part of the reason why I brought it now, is so
Right.
it could be part of that discussion.
I appreciate that muchly.
And I think the other part of that is for, if you're thinking of, like I would think of, how am I gonna pay for that? Is in past years, I mean, we have not been paid at the rate that the rest of the county elected or non-elected departments have been. So in a way, that helps pay for it. But I think it also goes to, if you want in any job, whether it's an elected for job or an applied for job, if you want competent people to bring their best game and to demand competition. And I know by doing this, I'm inviting more competition in the election potentially, right? Because I'm making it a more attractive job. I think it's important that you pay people appropriately. And so that's why I'm bringing it, so that we can have this conversation.
I want to echo that. I spoke with
appreciate
Treasurer Kurtz this morning, and she's sorry she can't be here, but that really is a valid point. You could pay the treasurer whatever you want, but you run the risk of not having somebody there who.
You run that every election.
Yeah.
I get that. I mean, I'm sorry, but I get that. There are people who will run for an office regardless of what that pay position is. You're right. You'll get more competition the better it is. But it doesn't matter. There will be people out there that want the position, whatever, and that's what you get. And I've seen that. What, can I ask a question? Why did we do the what is it? It's CPI or 3%, whichever is lower. Is there a reasoning, a history there that I'm not, why did we make that decision?
Before we did that, we weren't allowed, it was just set and that was fixed, and you waited for 4 years to fix it again. And so that was an attempt to try to make adjustments along the way, rather than, face this, 26%
But why 3%
raise.
or CPI lower?
Well,
Was that, I mean,
if
was
you
there
go
a
back
reason for
far enough,
3%?
That's what they used 3%, the
Okay.
state used 3%
That was just
for
what the
years.
state did.
That's what
I got
the
it.
state did. But we didn't do it at all until 4 years ago?
4 years ago, I
It was,
think.
this was done in September of '21.
Okay.
Right.
So about
And
4 years
I
ago.
think the answer to your question of why to index it was to take it off the table.
No, I remember indexing it. I couldn't remember why we chose 3% or CPI, and if that was because the state did. I remember the indexing. I was very supportive of that.
And inflation was historically pretty low, running up to that point. So
Well, yeah.
I think that's your-
We'd had a decade of very low inflation.
And, I'm sorry, you know,
I'm done, thanks.
The-
I'm way done.
so you consolidated the clerk and the recorder's office.
Right.
If that hadn't happened, what would the recorder and your current salary have essentially just been what it is today times 2?
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
yeah.
So even at the 154 ask, you're still providing,
$1,000
like
less than it would have been.
yeah, like a third less than what it would have been if you hadn't done that consolidation.
Right.
Currently, the treasurer, the clerk would have been the recorder, the coroner, the circuit clerk, and the auditor all are in the same salary.
Okay.
114.
And I would certainly be much more open to talking specifically about the clerk
This-
recorder than,
The only opportunity for adjustment right now, again, to be sworn in December 26th, is the treasurer, the clerk recorder, and the sheriff. The sheriff's paid on, again, separate schedule.
Right.
Tied to what the state decides to pay state's attorney.
So really, for practical purposes, we have 2 positions that we can look at. Go ahead.
if I can.
Please.
The sheriff does plan on coming forward and asking for a salary adjustment, because the state doesn't necessarily determine, they say we just can't pay less than 80%. So I just want you to know that there will be information, and I can give it to you today, but I saw elected official discussion, and I don't want to take away from what you're saying, but same thing, comparables, and where he's at with pay, so.
Do you know what the percentage ask or the total ask is gonna be, or is that still under discussion?
So we are, and I've been working with the director of HR and Pete, we've been talking about this for actually a long time. We want to tie it directly to the state's attorney's pay. So we don't feel there should be a difference in pay there for leadership, responsibility, et cetera. And then when we show comparables of what other chiefs, which those are the people who really, if you want a great sheriff's office and great leadership, we've got great internal people and then the chiefs around the county. And right now they're making $20,000, $30,000 more than the sheriff's pay. So obviously that percentage will be up to the board if you even consider it when we bring it forward. But we're gonna look at tying it at that, because I think the public defender is what, 90%?
Public defenders at 90% of state strength,
Right.
and then we get
half of that.
we get a chunk of that from the
I'd
state
say
if you do that.
Yeah, and that might even be what it is for the sheriff, and that's just since 2022. Before that, the county was responsible for his whole salary.
Nothing to do with that at all. Can you again, for me, say it twice? Tell me where we are with regard to the budget. If we take this, if we don't take this, repeat it to me again.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna ask you, by the way, every time I see you, so you might as well get used to it.
Well, I'll go back to Carrie's presentation. The most we can take on the tax levy is 2.9%. And if we take that 2.9% and the new growth, we're estimating we're about $1 million short right now of what our proposed expenses are and proposed.
And none of these requests have been worked into that?
They've not.
Thank you.
If we keep the levy flat as it is today, then we're about 3.7 million short. If we do a 3% reduction, as a third of the board suggested, we're going to be about 5.7 million short. I was noodling around a little bit yesterday I was talking with Scala on the phone, and he and I are going to meet tomorrow. And Gary, if we went with a model that kind of mirrors what we did last year, where we take about half of the allowable growth, right? So 1.3 instead of, or 1.45 instead of 2.9, then we're gonna land about $2.3 million short, start to be in workable areas. We're gonna have to make some adjustments on levies and some other things. But that's kind of where we are right now.
And I apologize, and I appreciate that, because that's what we ask you to do all the time. I just, again, this is where we start to talk about budgets. This is where we really have to make determinations in our own head and have that discussion about where we want to be and what we want to do. And I'm going to personally opine here. I think it's justifiable. I get it. I have always indicated I don't think government employees should make less because they're government employees. You want people who have expertise and who are good with dealing with the public and reflect our mission. But it's a challenge. If people want to be responsible to our property taxpayers, and we do a limit like that, you're going to be in the same place a year from now, where you're going to make tough decisions about what to cut and where to go.
It will be harder a year from now.
Harder.
It will be harder a year from now if we don't allow some growth in
Right.
that levy.
And we're going to be facing similar challenges with other constitutional officer salaries, right? I just want to lay it out there, because I don't want to hear at a committee of the whole, when we're looking at the budget, that we didn't have that conversation, because we're having it right now. So I appreciate you indicating that that's coming forward, all the work that you did. But again, it's all of us that have to go out and explain to our constituents why we did what we did. And here's the information. I'm off my soapbox for a little bit anyway,
Till the next time.
till the next time.
Okay. Matt or Terry, anything you have to add?
No, thank you, Pam, for being so articulate.
It will not be the last time, I promise you.
Smart and articulate. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a fine line.
Okay. Where do you guys want to see when go?
Wait.
Go ahead,
And
Terry.
Joe, I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm like not following anyways. But Joe, I am also, I realize all the hard work that you've done in that department. And sorry to see this situation. And I know it's going to work out somehow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, scheduling wise, if we're going to do this, this needs to be done before October, correct? We're going to be 6 months before the March primary.
If we wanted to,
Can I interject? I mean, I think legally,
We don't have to,
legally,
right?
it doesn't need to be done until 6 months before folks are sworn in.
So it's
But
May
that
of next
doesn't,
year.
that doesn't make sense.
But why would you let people who may want to run for the
We want
office not know
people-
what you're
right,
doing,
right.
which is exactly what Joe said earlier. That's why
We
we've always
really,
done it.
we should do this pretty quick
Yeah.
because people are gonna start passing petitions in August and have to have them
Well,
in by the end of
I
October.
have no trouble trying to put it on an August agenda if that's what the board wants, if that's
That
what
to me
this
makes-
group wants to do.
August, September, right?
I mean, whatever, I mean, I'll be happy to do that if that's what, if that's what. I don't know if you need it on our agenda first in August.
I would like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll bring this back the first week of August, and if all goes well, it'll go from here to the full board, August meetings if we're ready.
Would you like the treasurers on there as well?
I
And
think
the,
you
and the
should
sheriffs
put the two of
too.
them together.
All of them, let's do, yeah. And the board, if there's, I notice there's discussion, but all of it should be.
That's another.
Okay, well, we'll get to that later.
Let's just start with
let's
those
just do
three.
these three at the moment.
People are gonna pay attention. They should have it all at one time.
Well, we
That's just the
may, but
difference.
we're not there yet. Let's talk about the rest of this, and then we can talk about whether you want to do that too. If you want to bring that up, if you want to go to that right now, now's as good a time as any, elected officials.
Well,
Deal
no,
with
I
that
just
before.
noted that it was on, again, that was here, and if we're gonna talk about that, we should talk about that.
I heard clearly, bring forward clerk, recorder, and treasurer, and sheriff, but the county board is a different animal because only half of the board will be
Right.
sworn in on December 1st, 2026.
If it's a consideration by anyone at all that the salary needs to be increased or reduced, the conversation should be had. And it should be done when we're doing salaries, so that, again, I'm just looking from my perspective of 30-plus years, people will pay attention when we're doing it all at one time. And if you want your constituents to know the business of what we're doing, we should talk about it all at the same time. Otherwise, the perception will be is that we were doing a little here and a little there and a little there, and we're confusing everyone. And I don't like that.
So what do you want to
Personally.
see it do?
I think we have a discussion. Is there any, maybe we send out a survey to each of the individual board members and see where they stand, as we did with the levy and the CPI, you know? Is there any interest in having any discussion about salaries, yay or nay? And that'll give us an indication. I mean, we're talking again, I will publicly admit, I was not one of the ones that wanted to reduce the budget by 3%. But if that's really a goal that people want to look at, this is where we have those conversations. I keep saying that, but, you know, and if we're going to look at cutting things, the place that you start, I've learned for over 30-plus years, that the place you start is yourself.
Well,
And not to say anybody has to pick that up, just, you know? We're gonna talk about our budget later, so maybe we can
Let's talk about our budget, since we're going to do that, the next 3 or 4 things on the agenda. And we can, if we need to add something more to 8.1, we can do that as a result of that discussion. But in the meantime, I would say at least treasurer, sheriff, and the three that are on.
And just so we're all on the same page, then there's 3 other positions, the coroner, the circuit clerk, and the auditor, they're gonna remain just indexed for the next 2 years, so you.
Right, because
That
we can't
discussion on
change them in
those
the middle.
compensations is 2 years off.
Right.
And there will be a pretty big gap between what they're paid and what the others are paid. The Regional Office of Education is set by the state as well.
So the point of that conversation is, I mean, that's the way the process works, right? There's nothing we can do, but the point of that conversation is, bet your bottom dollar, we do increases now for the constitutional officer, you're gonna get that request 2 years from now.
Could we
That's the
do
point of
this?
that comment.
And I'm not saying I want to do this, but could we literally say, 2 years from now, these others will catch up,
Yes.
and they'll be X?
Well, you
We
can,
need to do
Because
that
we
in
can
the
pass that
budget.
resolution now, because what I saw happen in the past is that there was no push to do this in 2 years, and those guys go for 6 years before they get caught up.
but you can't hold a board in 2 years. You can say the intent is to discuss it, but you can't hold the board in 2 years accountable
You
for
can
what we
set
do
a
today.
salary 2 years, 4 years from now.
I think the 21 resolution did that.
Yeah, the 21 resolution addressed all of it.
Oh, okay.
We had a situation in fall 21 where we had a $4,500 gap between half of those countywide elections because of this steps that had been taken.
Because
Understood.
the board in between, I mean, we have a board now that's talking about it, but 2 years from now, or actually really 2.5 years from now, whenever that new group sits down, you're gonna have a new group of people. I don't know who will be of those 9, and it seems like we gotta talk about it.
Understood.
So I would say.
So you're tying the hands of that future board, just saying, giving you the other side, not saying I wouldn't. But so what you're doing is you're tying the hands of the board in 2.5, 3 years, 4
I mean,
years.
Not necessarily, right? Like
No.
theoretically, the future board could change it if they wanted to.
Not if it's in a resolution and we
Yeah, they
pass
could.
it.
You can revoke
you
it.
could still
do it.
Then it's
revoke it.
ridiculous to do that.
Well,
Then
right.
it makes no sense to me.
Well, but the new board may have a change of heart, but then they'd have to go take the effort to change it. They'd have to come in and say, I want to change it so that it's out of balance. If they want to do that, they can do that.
I hate government when government does that.
Right.
It's just me.
Okay, well, that's why I'm saying
Well,
we ought to talk about it now so that doesn't happen to these guys 2 years from now.
Well, you would hope that there's some continuity and someone would talk
Well,
about
there
that.
would be, but that's not necessarily the case. I don't know who's going to be here.
Well, Peter signed a contract for a longer period of time. I hope he's here.
Peter might be here, but I don't know what board members are going to be here.
I just meant to discuss the issue.
Well, we can talk about that too. I would put that on the thing too, then talk about, do we do that 21 motion again, or do we let the two groups fly separately?
Was 21 different because everyone was up?
No.
No, not
It was
for-
the
not for
gap.
county.
It was the huge
trying
gap
to-
between the salaries. That's why it was.
There was, you know, I mean, at that point in time, people were making about 100 grand a year, and you had some at 96 versus 100 or whatever.
It was really out of balance.
And
108 and 104, I think.
I'm sorry, what?
I think it was 108 and 104, and we brought
104, okay.
we brought them all to 114 or something like that.
And that makes sense to me, but I don't know.
Well, and all I'm saying is that when the next ones get elected 3 years from now, they ought to know what theirs is too. But anyway, if it makes sense to do it for these guys, it makes sense for the others too. They just aren't getting rid of it for 3 years.
And if the methodology makes sense, you know, perhaps that's an approach too, is to adopt that methodology for future
Well, even if we
discussion.
decide not to grant, we ought at least it gets a shot across the bow to the future board to say, this is what our thinking was when we did this.
Right.
You can hear this in 2 years.
Which is sort of what we're doing today, right? Because in 21, we said we'd like it to be like this. Nobody had any idea that inflation
We're
would
gonna
go
have an
crazy.
8% inflation rate in 1 year.
Right, right.
It's all right, we're curing that right now. There's no housing market left, it's all right.
142,000 units, state of Illinois, sure.
I understand. And until you fix the federal banking system, you're not gonna get them. But anyway, that's a whole other market.
You want
Okay.
to put that on the agenda, Joe?
Yeah, I don't
Fixing the
think-
national banking system.
I don't think that'll work. We
Outside
have
of our
some
lane,
club, but I don't
yeah.
think we're gonna get anywhere in that front. Anyway, so what I'm saying, at least from this perspective, is we're gonna talk about this the first of the meeting next month. And we're gonna pass a resolution or not, as the case might be, that would raise up the three immediately and talk about what the others, what we were expecting to do 3 years from that time. And whether we tie their hands or don't tie their hands, at least the discussion will be had.
It would be very easy to replicate 21s, as what Scott just said in my ear, including the coroner, circuit clerk, and auditor prospectively. And then you could remove those depending on what.
And I, again, clear, I have no problem with, I mean, in a majority decision, I have no problem with that. It's just, again, make sure you're connecting the dots in your head. The decisions we're making now and financial burdens we're placing on the county when we have budget discussions and we're talking about not having enough money. That's all I'm pointing out.
So in that case, while you're at it, I don't know why you couldn't do county board the same way. Leave it as is for 2 years, and when the second group comes through, then you could reset it all, and we could talk about that at the same time, if you're going to. So you could mirror that resolution that says, we're not gonna change it for now, we're gonna change it for 2 years from now, when the second group comes through, and then everybody will be on the same page. Then you'll have elected the whole board.
I see that.
So you're setting it,
Yeah.
not for 2 years, not for next
Yeah, yeah.
December, a year from now.
Yeah.
You're setting it for,
December
Yeah.
1st, 2028, county
Yeah,
board
yeah.
members will make this much.
Right. And then everybody from, I don't know if you want to do that,
I have to look at it.
but I get the thought process.
well, I'm trying to keep everybody on the even keel
Yeah.
and then change everybody at once.
I think that would be legal.
I don't know why you couldn't
Well,
do something.
State's attorney. It's a question for the state's attorney.
Yeah, we'll ask them.
The point, you're not supposed to be able to vote on your own race, and no
Right.
one sitting here can assume they're gonna be on the board in December 2028, because you.
Right. Well, and neither side would be able to, and no
Because
matter
everybody's gonna
which
be-
group you're working at, you're gonna all face an election
Right.
between
Now
now
and
and
2028.
then. So you're avoiding that problem.
I
And
understand.
at the same time, we're setting it so that we don't have half the board making X and half the board making Y. So, I don't know, I
Yeah.
just think it would work.
Yeah, I got it.
And it's better than waiting until we have the next census and, your other alternative is to wait until 2030. So,
It's a thought.
I'm okay.
It's a thought, yeah, it's a thought.
Okay, well, anyway, but we can have that conversation.
That's
I would put
interesting.
that on
All
the
right.
agenda too.
Challenge accepted.
Okay. Risk management. Okay, the first group we're cutting, we're gonna eliminate risk management, that'll take care of it.
We have no risk.
As we're going to say, we can calculate the savings. We cannot calculate the cost. All right.
Wait, before you start.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna do the same spiel I did at law government, I'm
I'm
sorry.
right here with you, I'm right here with you. Repetition, teacher? Yep.
Yes.
Review.
So I will, yeah, I'm joining right now.
But now you're not currently sharing your screen. Do you want to be sharing your
Oh.
screen rather than
Yes, just,
reshare you? So that's.
Scott has his risk model, which will take all morning. I have to be at the college at 10:30. Just put that out.
You're gonna miss the show, that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, maybe we should pull county administration up.
That's fine. No, I'm kidding. Scott can do this quick. Honestly, the county board, county administration, and county board chair, there's not a lot of highlights.
I got a few notes and it's nothing remarkable.
Risk is more fun because we have to make some decisions.
Okay.
I like that, that's gonna be our new motto.
So just really quick, I'm gonna plan on doing this before at least this first round of committee meetings, just kind of revisit some of the things we talked about at the committee of the whole. Because again, I think, you know, especially for the newer board members, you get a lot of information. We use a lot of different terms and that are mostly unique to government. So just to kind of revisit what we talked about at a high level and how that relates back to what we're talking about at these department level discussions. So first is just the difference between the general fund and the special revenue funds, which risk is actually going to be our first special revenue fund that we are presenting in this cycle. And just remember that general fund is one fund that has many different of the day-to-day operations of our departments, our large departments. And then the special revenue funds have specific revenue for a specific purpose. So again, the general fund, we use that term a lot, but it really encompasses a lot of the day-to-day operations. And here, for example, is some of the ones we're gonna be talking about. I missed the chair on this list. So the chair is on here as well, but then the county board, county administration, and county board chair all fall under the general fund. Risk falls under special revenue fund. And then again, this comes up a lot. There's some confusion when we talk about the general fund budgets. So when you see any department that falls within the general fund, their personnel, that cost does not include FICA, IMRF, or health insurance. So you know at the COW, we talked a lot about FICA and IMRF. Those are their own special revenue funds, and both of those funds are funded solely by property tax. It's their only source of revenue. So any decision that you make about general fund departments, salaries, elected official salaries, that also impacts the FICA and IMRF fund. So just to kind of keep that in mind, I think sometimes in these big discussions, we forget about that. And you know, the FICA and IMRF fund have been struggling to keep up with the personnel increases in the general fund. The special revenue funds, those three expenses are included in the number you see for the personnel. And then the health insurance, that's just a transfer from the general fund in non-departmental, which we talk about in finance, to the benefit fund. So that's how that expense is recorded. Any questions on that? So again, just for some context, you know, a lot of the discussion and most of the decision points are on the general fund, and that's because it's the most flexible source of revenue and so on. But again, there's a lot of activity in these special revenue funds. Risk falls into one of those, and then the two enterprise funds, Valley High and ATSB.
That whole pie is about 270 this past year, but
Yeah.
the general fund was like 108 or something.
Yes. So then this is just the revenue by category for the general fund. So again, a lot of discussion about property tax, but that's about 37%, and this is last year's budget, 25.
So of the $270 million budget, 108 roughly is on this pie.
Correct, and of that 108, 37% or 40 million is for the general fund. So again, just high level and then breaking it down. Breaking down the property tax levy, so that 37% of revenue to the general fund, the 40 million, of our total extension last year, that was about 61% to the general fund. You know, we talked a lot about this in the committee of the whole, that even though the special revenue funds are siloed, how they interact amongst each other impacts them. Like I said, when salaries increase in the general fund, we see some pressure on IMRF and FICA. And actually, IMRF, highway, well, outside of the bridge funds, the only source of revenue for these is property tax, outside of the general fund. And we talked a lot about IMRF, FICA, and VAC. The current property tax levy is not keeping up with the growth in those funds. So that's actually gonna be a big discussion. Pete mentioned earlier, some movement of the levies.
We need to strengthen IMRF and FICA and VAC, and when that happens, you gotta go where the strength is, and the strength is in the highway fund. There's opportunities there, potentially. Senior services, it's not a strong fund, but it is what you want it to be, and matching fund.
Well, I think some of the discussion will focus on, if we have a set amount for the levy, and we already have expenses that we've been obligated, then where do you look, and that's why like senior services, highway, those things have some space.
Variables.
So this one was actually not in the committee of the whole. But it did come up, sorry, I don't know if you can see it. So what this graph represents is since 2017, the yellow is the extension for the county, the total extension.
That's an actual levy.
Yes. This number up here, so the 80 million in 2017, is what we could have taken under PTEL. So the blue represents the money that we could have levied for, but we did not. So the total of that for over these 10 years is over 65 million. And actually that number is a little bit low because this accounts for the 3-year look back. So when you see this here drops off, if we were at this amount, the 3-year look back would have kept this number higher. So the 65, I think it's just a good representation of.
Yeah, the county board has done a great job.
Yes, and that you don't take what you just tax to tax. It's thoughtful and, but again, adding to the discussion of last year, or this year, we have a lower percentage on a lower number for the growth that's available. So that's it. Any questions? I know you guys are gonna get tired of hearing this, but no.
All right.
Okay, so.
I have one real quick.
Sure.
So for me being new, if you went back to the pie graph, does that kind of historically stay the same as far as percentage wise? Like 61%?
For the general fund?
Yeah. Maybe the next one right there. Does that kind of historically look the same?
It depends. So when we're setting the levies, we really look at each fund individually. So, for several years, we were able to keep FICA and IMRF, the ask, fairly flat. But now some of it's going to shift this year from another fund, whether it's highway, senior services, general fund, into those other funds. So I'll have to look back at the history. 61%. It's
That's
probably,
ballpark.
it's probably
You would have
pretty
had
close.
you would have had a slice there a year ago that said mental health, right?
Yeah.
And that would have been about 10%, 15%.
Yes.
It would have been a 15% slice that said mental health, so it would have squeezed everything. So I guess general fund probably would have been a little bit smaller as a share of the overall thing.
Okay, so now for the special revenue fund.
All right.
So if you share your screen, I'll let you drive.
We saw that one already.
Come on. Glad he's doing it, not me. Good? Yeah, all right. Okay. Now you've been waiting all morning for this, as have I. So I'm pleased to present the 2026 Risk Management Proposed Budget. As the Oversight Committee for Risk Management, your review of this is incredibly important. And part of this presentation is to help you understand, and the rest of the county board and members of the public understand really what goes into the Risk Management Fund. As Gary mentioned, it is a special revenue fund. It is segregated from general fund and operates on its own, and we can talk a little bit about some of that new ones. What you see though on the screen is a glimpse of the tort fund model, and that is a very important tool that we use to help develop the budget every year, as well as the tax levy requests. And we can talk about that at the very end, to the length that you would like to talk about it, or not at all, but nonetheless, we're ready to roll for it. So, no further ado, I just want to start out with just an overview of what risk management is, what we do, where it comes from. You know, there's I know a lot of everything that you're seeing throughout this, the whole budget process, and even moving forward, you're asking yourself the fundamental question of what is a mandatory versus non-mandatory service. And I want to respond to that immediately with risk management to say, is it mandatory or non-mandatory? And in most respects, I'm going to say mandatory. The county has to provide insurance. You're going to get sued. You have to have defense. You have to pay unemployment insurance. There are things that you have to do. So you can take away risk management, but then all this gets absorbed into the general fund. And I don't know if you really want to entertain that. But it is mandatory, and then a lot of what is not mandatory, such as training, training for the state's attorneys, staff that are attributable to the tort fund, that's essential, because you got to keep up with trends, you got to keep up with case law, you have to keep up with where things are going, and so it's not mandatory, but essential costs that are into this management fund. As a whole, we like to call ourselves an internal service provider and a resource to the county departments. We are here for the departments, we are here for the employees. In the event an employee gets injured on the job, risk management takes over, make sure that if they're injured on the job in the course of their duties, we want to make sure they get the care that they need so they can get back to work. That's good for the employee, it's good for the department that needs them out there, and that's part of what we do. And we serve as, some respects, a concierge, other respects just information, reporting back to the department heads where their employee is, to the extent we can, because if it's an injury and there may be some HIPAA protections, we can't share all the GUI details, but we can let them know the employee's off work, we anticipate them back at such and such date. So it's really important that we are that resource for the employees and for the departments. What we do is we protect and insure the people of the organization, the employees, and the assets, the buildings that you're in, right? We want to make sure that they're protected. If there's a loss, that we have coverage to get things back up and running, whether it's an employee back on a job or a building that's rebuilt after a catastrophic loss. That's what we want to do. We want to protect that asset. We also look for areas to minimize or mitigate risk. We're constantly surveying what we do, how we do it. If there's an injury, we're looking at that injury and asking, is there a corrective action that we could have taken to prevent that in the future? So that's one of the things we do. Helping us with that, and I say us as the risk management department, is a safety committee. And this is a multi-departmental committee that has representation from, I can't think, how much would you say? Like, we got about 16 departments on there, roughly, different buildings, different layers of the organization represented, just to help us understand what the workplace is like. What are they seeing? What is their perspective? What's happening in their building if they're in a different building than administration? So it's really important that we have that outside perspective to help us and provide recommendations. And you'll touch on some of those in this presentation. We manage claims to protect the financial resources and the operations of the county. We want to make sure that, if the claim comes in, do we have exposure to it? How do we minimize that exposure? Is this a nonsense claim? What do we want to do? So we're really active in managing the claims. We just don't turn it over to insurance and say, take care of it and let us know when it's done. That's not how we operate. We're hands-on. We're hands-on with, on workers' compensation. We're hands-on with legal defense. And the state's attorney's office is a great partner. They have, as you can see in this organizational chart, 5.2 full-time equivalents of the state's attorney are attributable and paid through the risk management fund and the personnel. They provide our defense. There's a big benefit because probably, let's say, up to about 2012, 2013, a lot of the defense was outside legal counsel. With the state's attorney philosophy shifted, and it continues to this day to bring that in-house. And so we do a lot of our defense across the street. And I tell you what, McHenry County enjoys very competent, very good legal defense. And we've got a great team of attorneys over there, and they see it, they know it, they know when it's time to fight, and they know when it's time to say, let's minimize our risk. One thing I'll tell you, we don't entertain nuisance claims. So, I mean, we'll fight. So, we like to say that because these are tax dollars. These are your tax dollars. These are your constituents' tax dollars. Yeah. And our job is to protect those tax dollars. So the fundamental driving statute that enables and authorizes risk management and the property tax levy that you provide to it is the Local Governmental and Governmental Employees Tort Immunity Act. So this is it's a specific state statute that authorizes your tax levy, but it also says that those tax levy dollars are restricted. So once you levy those for the purposes of your insurance loss fund, you can't then shift them and pay for say a desk for somebody. They have to be directly attributable to losses, to claims, to loss prevention programs. So once they're in there, they're restricted, which is important because we can spend money on certain things such as deputies' body armor, right? Because that's loss prevention. They have it, but there's other things we can't spend money on. So we have to have it in a silo. But as it says, tort immunity, as a governmental entity, we enjoy certain tort immunities. If there are certain actions that occur that result in, say an injury or loss to somebody else, there are defenses under this act that the county can employ to say, no, under tort immunity, we're not liable. So that's an important note. And our state's attorney is well aware of that tool and how to use it and when to use it. So I describe our insurance program as a hybrid program. Insofar as we self-insure the first $250,000 of a general liability claim and the first $500,000 of workers' compensation claim. That directly comes out of the county. Everything thereafter is under insurance policies, and we have layers of insurance policies. We have primary policies that go on top of that $250K, they take over, and then we have excess policies on top of that. So once you reach the end of one policy, we have policies on top of that because, as you can imagine, there's a lot of exposure with the county. We do our best to minimize it, but things happen, and we need to protect ourselves. And insurance policies are that stopgap. So it minimizes the county's exposure and transfers that risk onto the insurance companies. We do. Last year, we started a participation in a risk management pool for workers' compensation. And that was really helpful to minimize kind of our risk on workers' compensation claims. Historically, prior to last year, our third-party policy, it was going up, and the county's self-insured retention was getting up to $1 million, which means we owned the first $1 million of a claim. It's pretty substantial. It didn't make any sense. We made the switch last year to the risk management pool. Illinois Public Risk Fund, which a lot of your municipal partners are in. That's just the common landscape for municipal and county workers' compensation. And it's been a great relationship, and I think we've certainly seen the benefits by making that switch. And as Carrie talked about, Insurance Loss Fund is Fund 203. It is a special revenue fund. It's not does not compete with the general fund dollars. So anything that we're talking about is not part of that general fund slice of the pie. Funded largely through property taxes, but we also charge back to Valley High and DOT their insurance costs and their actual losses. And the reason we do those two departments is because they have their own revenue sources that come in. And because of that, we can charge those departments back. And it's just like if you have a business, Valley High is a business, that's an operating cost to that business. So that's the way to look at it. So we are that insurance company for the business. So, but that generates additional revenue in above and beyond the property taxes, and it helps temper what the property tax ask will be every year. And if there are any questions as we go on, please let me know. So I'd like to let you know how we anticipate 2025 to end up. Every year we walk into it with a budget, we anticipate what claims are going to come in and what claims are going to settle, but at the end of the day, you really don't know. So we have to do some projections, some analysis, and that's a constant part of what risk management does, and that's an ongoing routine. So 2025 budget, the revised budget was just shy of $4.5 million. We're projecting to end up just shy of $4.1 million, which means $400,000 was left on the table. And a lot of that is because when we anticipate what our losses are, we have a loss fund, and we'll talk about how that's calculated. That's a big part of the budget, and if our losses aren't to that level, this money, that's where a lot of that $393,000 comes in. It's unexpended from that loss fund. Our insurance and related expenses are over $1.7 million. That cost keeps going up. There's an 8.1% increase from 2024. And our estimated losses in 2025 we're projecting are going to be a little over $1.1 million. What makes 2025 a little bit unique is that we're seeing high property/auto claims and high unemployment claims. And those are two things. These charts, whoops, I want to do that. These are actually taken out of the model, but really kind of give you a sense of how over the years risk management changes, losses by year and type. As I mentioned, the unemployment claim is right here. You can see how unemployment claims, aside from 2015, we really have kind of low unemployment claims. My credit and shout out to HR, because they are very diligent in challenging or reviewing any unemployment claims, challenging ones that may be, that shouldn't be, and they do that. So thank you to HR and our team for being on top of that. But so this is higher, and there's I don't know if it would be appropriate to talk about why here, but it's higher. We budgeted $67,000 in 2025. Right now, I'm sitting at over $100,000. We anticipate probably about $125,000 by the time this year is over. So, and we'll talk about the implications of that in the fund. And auto and property, you can see here, it's a little bit higher. Actually, I'm sorry. Here, the auto and property is here, a little bit larger than in the past years. We replaced 3 squads. We had another accident where we had to replace somebody else's car. It just, it was a tough year. I'm sorry, not 3 squads, 2 squads, and I think another pool vehicle. So cars are expensive, as you know. But moving on, so we're projecting the ending fund balance of the tort fund to be just about 1.36 million. 2024 ended a little over 1.37 million. I'm happy to report that we only dropped about $14,000 in the fund. And that's important because when we talk about the tax levy, the model, there's a big shift in how the fund balance has changed. We are here, and this is 2024, I don't have 2025 on here because I'm only projecting and I don't want to put that data up here. But the fund balance back in 2014, 2015 was really high. Then the county said, you know what, it actually was arguably too high. Through different changes, the county board support of reducing the property tax levy. Basically, the tort fund was not funded with a property tax levy from 2019, 2020, 2021, and basically to feed off of that fund balance. Hey, where do I go? But now it's to the point since 2022, said, okay, we've done all we can, we've drawn down the fund balance, but now we have to operate and we have to bring in the property tax in. And the model really helps develop what this is. So, but 2025, we anticipate to be a break-even year, just slightly less than break-even. We're really happy about that. So into the budget. This is the 2026 budget. So I have some key notes I want to talk about. First off, it is the not including personnel, but including unemployment claims. We're looking at it just shy of $3.5 million. This includes anticipated losses. This includes insurance costs. This really everything. This is a $185,000 increase from the 2025 budget. But I want to note our insurance projections, our insurance premiums are anticipated to go up 9% or $209,000. So while the budget is, $209,000 increase in insurance between this year and last year, the overall budget increase is less than that, 185, because effort was made to reduce in other areas to help soften that blow, to help keep that down and not keep all the other line items the same and then increase for the cost of insurance. So I'm proud to report that. The other areas where we could reduce, we did. And that's why those numbers aren't as great as the insurance costs. When we budget, we do not budget for a worst case scenario. As I mentioned, there's an insurance loss fund in our budget which handles your claims, your settlements, your workers' compensation claims. That's the workhorse in the budget. I could come in and say, you know what, it's going to be $5 million. And I'd be pretty confident that we won't pierce that. But that's not a reasonable or rational way to approach the budget, because it arbitrarily inflates that number, and we don't know. So based on years of just trend analysis, looking at where claims come in, looking at what claims are on the table, what we anticipate settling, what we anticipate coming in, trying to, look at our cloudy crystal ball and make our, best estimate. We keep that at a little over $1 million. Most years that's sufficient. Some years it's not. But once again, it's trying to take a reasonable and rational approach to budgeting to ensure we can cover those losses within the fund without requiring emergency appropriation. We try to do the best work that we can to develop that number. And the model actually touches upon that as well. So this year's budget contemplates $3.5 million tax levy, which is the same as last year.
That's the important part of the day.
Yep. So, and we can show you how that was developed and why that request is being made. And as far as looking forward, some of the things we want to do, all the AEDs in the county, I say most of them need to be replaced. They're at end of service. There's an 8-year machine. They're going on 8 years. Those are the automatic electronic defibrillators. So if somebody has a medical situation, put them on. And so that's going to be about $30,000. We're going to replace those out of risk management this year. We're going to enhance the employee alert system called Omni Alert. There's some features and functions that we don't utilize that we should. Our safety committee was really engaged in looking at how employees are notified about incidents, actions. But if there's an active assailant in a building, we tell, hey, stay away from this building, bad things are happening, right? So the instant notification. So there's a lot of things we're not utilizing. So the safety committee looked at it, seen some presentations, said, you know what, we want to enhance what we have. And when we want to explore vehicle dash cams for our non-pursuit fleet vehicles. Health department already has dash cams in a lot of their vehicles, but a lot don't. And that's really important because when you have an automobile accident, you're relying on video footage. And we have dash cams in the video. That's just great for just helping understanding what happened with an accident.
2 questions. One, how easily is that transferred from vehicle to vehicle? And I don't mean like today, yeah. I'm transferring it from this vehicle. I mean in long term. So if we put it in a vehicle and we purchase new vehicles in 3 years, does that transfer? Do you buy new? And then what's kind of sort of the thought of how many and what's the cost?
We're exploring. So right now, we don't know what the cost is. We're still tallying which vehicles have them and which vehicles don't. To your second question, so more to come on that. Okay. But to your first question, my understanding is that technology can transfer. I mean, it's an add-on to a vehicle, and if we replace that vehicle, we can move it out and add it on.
To the new vehicle.
Yeah, so to a new vehicle.
And what's the lifespan of something like that? Do we have,
to come?
More to come?
More to come. Okay. So we explore.
Good question.
So yeah, But thank you, but I appreciate that.
We're discussing budget, I'm all in.
Yeah, but that's a goal. So, like I said, it's, we're doing some important things planned for 2026. And we really want to touch on our insurance costs, because this is a big piece of the budget. As I mentioned, we're anticipating a 9% overall increase. Normally, when I do this budget presentation, it's August, maybe even in September, and I've been working with a broker, we've been understanding the market, and so I have a little bit better understanding of where this number is. But I'm premature, we're early, so I'm kind of gauging it, and I think 9% seems to be where it's going. I'll know better in a month, about a month and a half, but for purpose of building the budget, that's what I'm using. Our primary policies is a little $1.1 billion. Our excess policies, $883,000, and we're anticipating Valley High to go up a little bit more. It used to be a pain point. The past couple of years, it was a really modest increase, which we're pleased about, but I'm thinking that's going to start going up. Long-term health care is a very difficult area of business to insure. I'll just tell you that. And property is going up. The cost of construction, just first and foremost, is going up. I'm personally going through my own homeowners renewal, and just seeing when they evaluate the cost of construction, it hurts. But we have to plan for that. We have over $230 million worth of buildings, so I think we have to ensure that. We are going to be aggressively marketing our general liability and our package policies. These are your public officials liability policy, your law enforcement liability. We've been with a company for quite a long time. I am experiencing some challenges with that. I told the broker I want aggressively marketing us to others to see what they can do for rates, to see what they can do just for service. Some areas that aren't necessarily covered or get pushed back from our current carrier, I don't think they should. So maybe another carrier will be a little bit more workable in respect. So that's something that we're going to be doing this year, and that obviously factors into what the overall increase could be. Maybe it could be a decrease. I don't know.
Another dumb question. I mean,
no dumb
we obviously, we have to do this. This is something that we have to do, right? Have insurance. Do we typically do our policies from year to year? Are they longer than that? Are they automatically renewed? How do we typically structure those?
Most of them are year to year. There are some, such as our crime policy, which is a 3-year policy. So you do it and it lasts for 3 years. So, but that's a small nugget in this bucket, small job in this bucket.
But these are things we have to do.
But to your first question, to be clear, the county does not have to have insurance. You can 100% self-insure. You have that option. And we look at that, and we look at what the self-insured retention is, and we run different risk tolerances and where that would be for the county. You have that option. You can save the $1.7 million, but in the event that you have a claim, a large claim, you're going to have you can absorb this. But
I just want everybody to understand that those are variables that administration looks at very closely to determine where the cost break is and the expense. That's all. Yeah. Thank you.
In the industry, and that's called risk tolerance. How much risk are you willing to absorb, and how much you want to roll your dice and take your chances? I mean, so it factors into it. But thank you for that. That is an important note in this discussion.
Thank you.
And I touched early on the shift to Illinois Public Risk Fund, and we've seen some benefits that help rein in some of our workers' compensation costs. Highlights and goals. I don't really want to go too much into this. It's in the packet. You can read it. Really proud of the work we did. And I touched on some of the goals. But I do want to really just shine a little bit of light on this very last bullet point, and that's we collected over $17,000 year to date in subrogation claims for DOT. This is something risk management started doing for DOT. I think last year we really dove into it. We've been doing a little bit prior to that. This is an event. Let's say a driver hits one of our signs or one of our traffic control devices. Those could be expensive. DOT was working independently to try to get that from their third-party insurance, and they would have some success. But this is what we do. right? This is what risk management does. So they actually handed off this to risk management and said, you know what, you do this, you know how to talk to insurance companies. And so we were very happy to lend a hand. 17,000 year to date for 2025, but last year and so far, over $150,000 has been collected in subrogation for DOT. These are, devices and equipment that the county otherwise would have to pay for. But we were able to get it from their insurance company, chase them down, send them letters, have some very difficult conversations, but I'm really pleased to report, and I want to thank Lisa Shamhart, who's on the front end of a risk manager, to really know how to be effective in this arena. So, but that's money recovered for the county and for DOT. So just moving forward on here, performance indicators, really nothing remarkable. The in-house workers' compensation claims, which are kind of towards the end, zeros. Because when we shifted to Illinois Public Risk Fund, everything goes to them, right? So we don't really do anything. I gotta confirm our 2025 numbers. I don't know if these should be zeros, I apologize, because we had what are called runoff claims, claims that we were handling in-house prior to this IPRF shift, which we still managed, and I thought we had a few settlements, so it's not gonna be remarkable, but I just, looking at this, I'm thinking, wait a minute, I thought we had a few, so. Nothing substantial in here, this is, and nothing really out of the ordinary, just keeping with trend that we anticipate, so. All right, so, Pete,
Get to the chase.
We're running. This is good. Key changes. We talked about the 9% insurance premium increase. The public officials bond is reduced. Those are the clerk recorder, the treasurer, the circuit clerk. We have to have a public official bond in place. Risk management pays for that. We're in an off election for 2026. 2027, when they take office, we'll have to have this, but there's a cost to the county. But we can reduce that. It's nominal, but it's a reduction because we're off election. We talked about the in-house workers' compensation claims. And when I said we went to the budget and softened the blow for the insurance increase, we looked at the association dues, our training and our contractual professional services, and we made reductions in those line items to help reduce the overall budget increase. So those are important aspects. But we're trying to do the good work for the county. We're towards the end. I'm just saying. Items to note: when you look at the risk management budget, we actually allocate money to other departments. The sheriff's office, over $75,000. Earlier in this presentation, I mentioned their body armor. We pay for that body armor in risk management. That's loss prevention. So the sheriff goes out to bid for it, and then they send us, and so deputies need their new body armor, body armor replaced. We pay for that. That comes out of risk management. The coroner, they have a lot of medical waste disposal. That's a regulated aspect, and so we pay for that because it's a compliance issue. They can't just throw, as you can imagine, medical waste in the trash. Similar with the jail, but the state's attorney, they go to trainings, they have meeting expenses. Their bar association dues for that the attorneys attributable to work to risk management come out of the state's attorney, the risk management budget. I touched on unemployment insurance. That is actually in the personnel, the 300 object, or the object level 3. Is that right?
30s.
Object level 30s, because it's related to personnel. And I make the statement every year that it's important to note that because in the event if we have high unemployment insurance claims, that's going to impact the overall personnel budget, which is pretty precisely calculated based on the employees in there, wages, benefits, FICA, insurance, health insurance. So it's a pretty precise number. And then unemployment is on top of that. In the event of a high unemployment claim year, that could impact the ability to have money to pay all the people out of risk management. This year, we're going to see that. As I mentioned, we budgeted $67,000 in unemployment. I'm sitting at over $100,000 today. I anticipate about $120,000 to $125,000 by the time this year is ended. It's very likely you're going to see an emergency appropriation to increase the personnel budget because of the unemployment costs. There's are things that we cannot control, and we have to pay those. So that's going to be coming forward.
What's our historical on that?
Actually, as far as the cost, so let me go to.
I don't care about cost. I mean, typically, do we see a supplemental coming forward every year?
No.
No.
So this is 25.
That's what I'm
Very rare.
asking, just again, to give it
We
perspective so
budgeted
everybody
67,
understands.
that's
Thank
probably
you.
about average.
In my tenure, which starts in let's say with 2014 and 2015 budget, I've only brought forward one budget emergency appropriation because of budget. And I'm pleased to report.
That's what I need, thank you.
Yep.
That's what I,
So this is gonna be a second one, and you can see, the very low blue, these are the unemployment costs. 2015, it was really high. This is because there was a lot of grant positions that were, when the grants had expired, and you had the unintended consequence of unemployment costs because of personnel attributed to grants were no longer with us. We had the obligation of their unemployment thereafter. So that's why it's a number, but, all right. I talked about the other personnel that comes out of the risk management, state's attorney's office. 1/2 of your chief information security officer, or CISO, which is in IT, comes out of risk management. And the reason being is cyber is one of your biggest threats, one of your biggest risks. This position is out there analyzing kind of the cyber world and what can we do to better protect ourselves. So loss prevention, so we cover half that cost, which means it doesn't have to come from the general fund. Half of the deputy county administrator's salary is paid for other risks. It used to be all, but now parts attributed to general administration, a general fund, and an economic development fund, because this position does work in other areas aside from risk, and it was only appropriate to attribute it correctly. So the other, we have a full-time risk manager, and actually 1/4 of our administrative manager, who sits right in the corner, Kathy, because she helps with risk management. So part of her salary is paid for other risk, which means not on the general fund. That is all the budget. We move on to the good stuff, which is the model.
well, I want to go back.
Yes.
So, budget, what's in it that I could literally look at to reduce or to eliminate?
Well, that's a great question.
So
I only need 105,000 off that 3.5 million, and you're 30% down.
I mean, if we're asking questions now,
Well, this is.
no,
when we
I'm
do
not,
it, right? Yeah.
I have my own, so.
Sure. So let me, if I can address member Altus first. So I mentioned there's been reductions in training, dues, memberships, some of the, kind of the non-mandatory, but I'm gonna call them essential areas. It doesn't been reduced. Do we have to do training or conferences? Arguably, no. I mean, we can cut that. The risk is then we don't keep up with trends, we don't keep up with practices. State's attorney can't attend seminars of new case law, and the attorneys in the room understand how important it is to stay up with the legal world. But yeah, I mean.
I would also opine what you do is you also increase dissatisfaction with jobs, and that's a retention issue. I mean, all of that's related.
Yes. So there's the qualitative benefits of that as well. But really, just understanding the world that we live in and the insurance world is important to keep up with it, because it changes so fast. But that's an area. We have a volunteer medical policy, that we don't have to have. It's a little over about $1,500, but it's of all the volunteers, whether they work for EMA, the sheriff, we have the sheriff volunteers, medical reserve corps, volunteers for animal control. If they get hurt on the job, let's say a volunteer for EMA is doing a search and rescue, they're walking a field and they sprain an ankle, they don't have good medical coverage, they're on their own. This is a little add-on to say to our volunteers, what you do is important. If you get hurt, we have a medical policy that will help cover it. And we've actually had to use that a few times. It's a very cheap policy, but $1,500 can go away. We can tell our volunteers, hope you got good insurance. Thanks for your work. But if you sprain an ankle, you're on your own. So that's an area that can be cut. Your cyber insurance. Here's what I'm saying about that. As I mentioned, one of your greatest area of risk. In 2015, cyber insurance was a novelty. Right? They didn't even know how to price it because they didn't know what it was. And over the years, it evolved. Now you hear about cyber risks, probably 100 times a day. It's important, and it has to evolve and develop.
Yesterday.
Yeah. But, you know, it's one of those policies we have. We do a great job to protect the county. We've got great investment from the county board into our network to ensure we are protected. We have a chief information security officer whose job is to think about what we can do better and what are some of the risks and how we're going to. So we put the right things in place up front. Insurance is only at the back end, right? So it's prevention. All your investment over the years into the network, that's critical. And I say, I keep on doing it.
He's coming back.
My question is, if I leave right now, do we lose quorum?
Yes,
Yes, okay.
Do you, don't they count and
they
be?
don't count. We have to have a quorum in the room.
I thought that was only to let people in. We don't have to have they count as a quorum, now they're in the meeting.
It doesn't matter, I'll stay. I'll stay.
I'm gonna disagree with them, but okay.
I mean,
You have to have a quorum in the room to call the meeting to order. That I'm
Right.
clear on.
We've called the meeting to order, their votes count, but okay, well, I'm not gonna argue, I'm not the chair.
And you might be right, but
I'm not the chair.
if he needs to make a call and we want to take a 10-minute break, I'll take a 10-minute break, but if he's not coming back, that's a problem.
I would be coming back, but don't worry about it, it's fine.
So another area to answer your question are risk tolerances. We can take on more risk in the front end. We can increase our SIR from $250,000 to $500,000. That will reduce your insurance costs. We can take on more, but you know, is that something that you're willing to do? So there are areas where you can adjust. You can throttle up or throttle down. The question is what is in the county's overall best interest and how much you're willing to absorb. So those are some options. But we're here to respond to wherever you want to go. If you want to, as I started out the meeting, we can calculate the savings. You can't calculate the cost.
Yeah, I understand that. It would be a detrimental cost, but it's a risk.
So,
So bottom line, $3.5 million levy?
your bottom line, but I can show you how we arrived at that. I just want to touch on it. Eric, what you said you had a question or a couple?
I just had one question. So 2024, it looks like the contractual expenditures were 2.6. 2023 is 2.7. We're budgeting for 3.4. Is the primary cost driver just the increase in the insurance premiums?
No, it's the loss fund,
Okay.
which is the workhorse to pay all our claims and settlements. So you look at the actual numbers in 2023, 2024, where everything, the dust settled, that's where that line item ended up. I budget a little over $1 million every year going into it. That's why you see that disparity. So when you see 2025, hopefully, knock on wood, it'll be lower.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
you know, once again, every year, you know, has different. So that's why but great question. Appreciate that. So I have the auto ready to go. It's fun. We can look at it offline if you want, if you're interested. But here's what I want to show you if I could.
I have never seen anyone so excited about risk.
It's awesome.
It's a compliment.
The only thing wanted, okay. So it's important, the whole point, there's a lot of stuff that happens on here and goes in the background, and it really, I tell you what, it's a great tool that we've developed and evolved over the years. The whole point of this tool is so I can tell Pete and Carrie, here's how much we need for risk management. $3.5 million. And the model puts in all kind of different factors and variables, anticipates insurance increases, anticipates personnel increases. The loss package, this is I'm particularly proud of. I love to show you that. I'm not here, not the time, but it anticipates what we anticipate as far as a loss year. And I broke it down, and you know, we're going to have a good year or a bad year. You know, some years, 21 was a really bad year. We had, it was a 4, lots of losses. But based on all of this put together, I try to give my best insight as to what that tax levy is going to be. That way I'm not given an arbitrary shot like, hey, I need $4 million. It lets Pete and Carrie know and understand where we need to be, and so then they can put that into the mix. And whether or not, 3.5 is where the county board wants to go. You want to go less, it's going to decrease my fund balance. But really, this tool can show you, what that number needs to be. What's fundamental on the bottom in the model, I have basically the tax levy break-even number. I'm asking for 3.5 in FY26. break even is 4.3, you're just shy of 3.5 million. So show you that it's not arbitrary. It's not, I'm throwing something on the table, seeing what sticks, hoping for more money. There's a bona fide methodology to that request. That's the model. I can give you as much time as you want, or a little time, or I can shut up right now and move on.
Terry and Matt, do you have anything that you have a question about? I guess not. All right.
Wow.
Any questions about risk management? Any questions about, do you want them to lower this $105,000, which would be 3%? Okay. Pete, you have 25 minutes since you have to be in another place, so why don't we do?
Actually, I found out it started at 10, so I told them I'm gonna be late.
You're already late.
Shaylin and Mark Picos are meeting with R1, and I'll join them when I can. So thank you.
All right.
You know, actually, Pete, I can run right through all three budgets very quickly.
Keep rolling.
All right.
Keep rolling. You
We're,
can do them faster.
I can do it faster. First of all those three, there's really nothing remarkable. All right, they're pretty boring. Compared to the risk budget, I mean, they're incredibly boring. And there's no model to support that.
Scott and Alicia and Carrie and Maureen, we met last week to go over the budgets, and they're all quite unremarkable.
Hey, these are just simple bullet point highlights, and we can move on.
I do have one cool thing.
Okay.
So it'll be.
Yeah, let's see it.
So I have to be honest, in prior years, we kind of built up ClearGov, which is the tool, the transparency portal, where we have the GFOA budget document, and then Questica is where the departments actually build their budget. But there is also a transparency portal that's open for the public. So since we're starting budgets really early, we've been kind of doing it together. So I was a little bit behind, but if you notice, at the end here where we have the financial summary, if you click here, and this is going to be in all the budgets going forward, it just kind of gives you a single spot to go, you know, where I do a little write-up where I talk about this process, you know, really, because this is available to the public if they want to look at it. The link to ClearGov, which holds everything for our GFOA budget document, highlights and goals, performance indicators, there is a financial piece at the very end, but right now they're separate. And then Questica is where the actual numbers are. So you see it rolled up to like personnel, contractuals, commodities, but if you want to dig in, you can utilize Questica. And then this was my mistake in county administration. We updated ClearGov with some highlights and goals, but I forgot to have Kathy repost. So there are some new highlights and goals. Yes. So but this is nice because you know, we incorporate a lot of this in your packet, but you can also always come in here and start to see all the budgets as we are developing them. You know, of course, everything's draft, so it can change. But it really gives you a lot more detail if you want to look at all the budgets, a particular budget, a particular line item, or whatever. So
That was cool. I'm glad you did.
you know what, ClearGov is cool.
Yeah.
Of the three budgets, county board chairman and county board, there are those two, there's no significant changes at all. In county administration, we do anticipate reducing headcount by one early in fiscal 26. We are going to have a retirement at our front desk position, and we are not going to replace it. Kathy and her team are going to work more with AI and some different tools, leaning maybe a little bit more on staff and purchasing, but we are not going to replace that position. So we will see a reduction in headcount in county administration.
This is one of my bullet points. And the only other thing I want to say about the county administration budget is when you look at the goals, you mentioned AI, the county is led by Alicia Schuler, has been really diving into AI for about the past year and a half or so with a multi-departmental work group of people coming in understand what AI is going to do to the county, how we operate, how individual departments operate. And this is really going, Lisi has been tasked to head that for organization-wide, right? And she's going to come in with much more detail, later on in the year, September, talking about some of the opportunities. There's external AI functions, there's internal AI functions that help us, and there's operational AI functions, and there's a lot of tools, and she's going to kind of lay that out, give you more of a robust presentation of what's out there, what's available, what we're looking at, and what are the implications. So just my whole point is to know that we are fully embracing the understanding of AI, looking at those opportunities. Sometimes there's concerns too, with the guardrails around AI, which this committee recommended an AI policy, a while back, because you have to have those guardrails. But anyway, that's one of our goals, and I think that's going to be a lot of work for 2026, and we're really excited to see. But as Pete mentioned, there's some organizational implications to it. There's some opportunities. So, I don't really have anything else to report under county administration, unless you, Pete, or Alicia, or Carrie, unless you do. Because like I said, they're pretty vanilla budgets. I'll just touch on the county board chair. Really, there's nothing remarkable, just a slight increase in personnel, but there's a reduction in contractual. This is just the county board chairman. No other staff in that budget, just the chair. The commodities, the chair does some travel. There's a lot of meetings, as you know. Chairman Bueller's really out there representing the county in a variety of different venues. So his travel and things that largely come out of the commodities. I don't know anything else to report on the county board, except pretty simple, our county chair. And county board, just one important thing to note, in addition to 18 county board members, you do have one full-timer within your budget, and that's our administrative assistant, is Tiana. So she actually is out of your budget because she does a lot to support really the county board functions. Slight increase in personnel because of the full-time, and you've got increase. But as you'll notice, in the county board, reduction in contractual commodities. So there are areas that we're looking at to reduce. And what's neat about the county board budget is there's a revenue stream. Licenses, fees, charges for service are attributable to fund what the county board does. So I just want to make that note. If you look at the chair, there's not a revenue stream, but you have it. So that offsets the cost. And the one fundamental is you look at your highlights and goals, and if you see anything that's missing or want or see or know something that should be on there, please let us know. This is your opportunity to incorporate. They're kind of, not remarkable, but looking at we're going to do a board rule review.
It's only July 2nd. We have opportunity to add.
You have opportunity to add. So we just kind of.
If there's a goal or highlight you would like to add, just send it to me and I'll add it to clear up.
Let us know. We just try to develop this for you a little bit.
We did 2025 highlights about the strategic plan. Is there some way that we can just make mention that we always look at that? Don't we always evaluate where we are in the strategic plan?
Yeah, that's.
I just, it's me. If I'm looking and I'm a constituent and I see that, I would love to be able to refer people back to our strategic plan, which is where I think we do, majority of our work, setting, our goals and our policies. So just throwing that out.
So if we could put something in such as review policy decisions against the strategic plan for alignment.
Something. I just think that's, yeah.
Okay.
We do a lot of work with that strategic plan and we review it and update it and grade ourselves. So I just would like that.
And the county board should be commended for that.
Exactly.
Well, you also are developing a new strategic plan too. Perhaps that could be,
I don't care. I just think that that's important. If people are looking at where the money goes, why, I think the strategic plan is crucial to all of that, so.
So with that, those are the three budgets. Are there any questions or changes or concerns? Happy to respond.
Board members, go ahead.
This is where I'm gonna come again. Again, we have people who wanna cut the budget. Here's where we start, the county board. Many people take some benefits here. There's a $300,000 hit. I don't know if it's reflected directly in here, but You know, we offer benefits. I mean, I am not advocating. I am just having a conversation that we constantly talk about reducing. Here's where we have those discussions. And again, this is where we start. And I am not reluctant to have those hard conversations and make decisions. This is where they begin. So if we want to start looking at that, you know, I'll be darned if I'm cutting somebody else's salary or if I'm increasing, you know, or reducing a program and I'm increasing salaries of other individuals, and we do not look at our own. So this is where it starts. Somebody have a conversation.
Terry,
You want to reduce it, I
go ahead.
No, I'm saying I will.
Terry, did you want to add something?
No, I'm saying
Well, one thing I would say, I think that Pam's talking about county board pay and benefits. I would not be in favor of increasing them. I do know that many people are not independently wealthy that would want to run for the board. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I hear talking, so I'm not sure. Is that?
Blame it on Eric and Pam.
Oh, it's a sidebar. Sorry, Terry.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know. I know that not all people who run for board positions are independently wealthy. Some people actually need some type of stipend or coverage, and I would hate to deter people who are working people to be able to run even a nominal amount. And I'm not talking about increasing, but I don't think that there's anything right now to look at there. I'm not sure if we could get an overall cost of what the benefits are for 18 board members, you know, fine, you know, throw it out there.
I can answer it, Terry, I can answer it right now. I told you I'd be prepared. Currently, there's 14 members that take benefits, and it's a total of $306,000.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking that if all 18 members took everything, what would that cost me? And what I'm saying, Pam, is that you don't want to be in a situation where something is so unattractive that people who would need it couldn't run to the office. That's all.
I concur. I absolutely concur. I am not advocating one position over another. I am saying if people want to have a conversation about reducing our budget and the levy, this is where those conversations happen. And one of the expenses that is out there that is totally under our ability to change are those benefits. I just want to have that, I want to have that discussion so that nobody looks at me 3 months from now and says, but I didn't know.
No, right, and what I'm saying too is don't say what's being used, say what the entire amount that is what the total exposure is.
390,000.
There you go.
Okay, so if 390,000 for the pay.
390,000 for benefits for the county board members, if everybody
Okay,
took.
and that includes payroll burden?
No, that is just benefits.
Okay, I want the whole payroll burden, what the exposure would be for 18 members if they were taking everything that was offered. That's what I'm talking about, exposure. That's the number.
Terry, it is kind of weird though, because I don't know how administration would do that, because there's so many different insurance plans that people can opt into.
Right.
Well, I do it all the time at work.
No, you know what I'm saying though? You're asking them to predict what benefit plan they would enroll in. So
right.
I don't think it's a bad idea, but I think it should be, if you are asking them, you should ask for like the most expensive one or.
That's what I'm.
I'll be happy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying if you want to know exposure, and it's not a big deal. It takes like minutes. You just forecast, and I'm just saying if you want to throw that out there, but my contention is we get very modest salaries. We don't get pensions. One of the things that we do have are medical benefits for people who take them. And so, yeah, throw it out there because.
Yeah, you're right. It's easy to figure out. We have about 9 different health insurance options if we want to just assume the most expensive option for 18 county board members plus salaries and plus dental.
And again, please don't misunderstand. I am not in any way, shape, or form advocating one or the other. You know, it's human nature and people take advantage of those benefits that are offered them at the time. What I'm stating is we have these broad conversations about reductions and being responsible elected officials, and yet this is an area, again, where you're having taxpayers pay for those benefits. We should have a conversation about it and make that part of the overall review of a budget, that's all.
Any other questions?
Yeah, for the county board, I'm looking at the expenses and it shows contractual. What is that contractual amount? Is that just our salaries? I assume that would be in the personnel, that's why I'm asking.
Correct. Contractual is membership dues.
It's county memberships, right? NACO,
County memberships.
ISACO.
Okay. I was wondering, because that's what I was trying to.
What? CMAP.
Okay.
That would make sense, yeah.
So not membership fees for the members
Organizational
themselves?
memberships.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Got to put them somewhere.
And
No, that's fine, I just.
And how much do we actually allocate or budget for training and for McCog and things of that nature?
It's
So a long time ago, there used to be like a hard and fast rule, like, you know, $1,000 per board member.
Right, I understand that.
But that was so underutilized, we really try to focus on, we look at what's being used and go from there.
And so what has that number been, do you know, for the last several years?
under 10,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Per person. I mean, we calculated the other day.
We don't get 10 grand per person.
No, I'm just, again, I'm asking questions to give everybody the full benefit of all the information that
It's
needs
helpful
to be
because,
clarified.
we talked about this the other day. We said, okay, as a belt tightening, you know, nobody gets their McCog dinner paid for. How much are we gonna save? Well, it's like $1,100. It's not a big number.
Understood. You know, in the grand scheme of things, you know, it's what your tolerance is. I just want to have a conversation.
Okay. Any other questions of the budget reviews?
For the liability fund, how much, I know you have that target level that you want. How much would that be increasing this year?
The levy amount?
More like the expense amount, right? Because the money we're contributing, that extra money we're contributing to try to reach his baseline or his target level.
I think, didn't you have your fund balance staying flat?
Yeah.
You do?
So
Okay.
here's a model. So this orange, goldish, it represents the fund balance as it's projected out through fiscal year 2028, which is going to incorporate all the different variables, which can be changed, but you know, this is where we're at. But you see 2027, in order to make it work, we're looking at a 3.85 million tax levy, 3.98. And once again, that's based on this break even down here for all the costs and everything we're going to put it in the mix. Loss package is a big driver. You know, I'm anticipating, knock on wood, kind of hopefully a lighter year than 2025. I hope I didn't jinx it. But you know, based on, you know, as an attorney, you know, like, you know, a lawsuit gets filed today, it's 2, 3, 4 years before it fully manifests its cost. And based on what we have in the books, where things are at, you know, I incorporate, you know, possible outcomes or resolutions and where they would be at what point in time, and that's all part of this mix. So, but based on the model, and that's why this model is, I think, so incredibly helpful, is to really give that insight. And as we get through 2026, you know, this constantly is updated and it changes. And The whole point is really to break even. Ideally, if you said, gee, Scott, what would be your optimum fund balance? I'm gonna use, this number is called the central estimate. Every year we have an actuarial analysis done. And this basically is the amount of money needed at a 50% confidence level to settle all the claims, everything on the books. That's really where I'd love to be, but it obviously takes a lot of work to get there because you can see the difference between where we're at 1.3 million to where that number is, which is, let's say it's, just under 5 million. So that's not realistic. If we ever want to have a strategic goal for liability, it could be to get there, but that of course requires funding. And right now you've got more important areas to consider the allocation of that funding.
Yeah, I just was gonna comment too. I'm gonna imagine that we're gonna see during this budget cycle a lot more requests with regard to cybersecurity and upgrading and things of that nature. No? Yes?
We've not met with IT yet, but I would not.
I'm gonna guess just from prior conversations that we're gonna see and hear some of those.
We are anticipating a significant request relative to updating our phone system.
Right. Again, conversation.
But also too, just to kind of circle back to where we started, where we talked about the special revenue funds being in silos, but how it still impacts the overall picture. And so as you see, even just risk, as the needs go up and expenses increase, so if we are already levying a lower percent on a lower number as our new base, that gives us less for going forward. So as this need goes up, that you assume would automatically pull from like the general fund. And so the levy available for the general fund will go down just as general fund expenses are starting to go up because of ARPA. So that's really kind of the big picture challenge. Yeah, thank you.
What Greg's doing, and for Terry, Greg let me know, this wasn't being shared, so the model, so Terry, hopefully you can see that. And I just, plug in, if you do,
Yes.
If you do 3 million this year, 3 million next year, 2027, 3 million 2020, you can see the impact it has on the fund balance. Whenever anything goes in gold, keep in mind, the county has to pay its claims, has to pay its settlements, and if it's not out of the tort fund, it's out of the general fund. So if this goes down low, and it doesn't mean that the county's not paying it, it means it's coming out of another funding source. So that's why it's important that you keep the tort fund at least in check, and that you are funding it, because you're gonna pay a judgment, you're gonna pay a court case, you're gonna pay workers' compensation claims. Period.
And does PTEL control these individual,
No.
Okay, so theoretically, we could raise this 800% as long as we didn't violate PTEL in the grand scheme.
Some levies have maxes, but we're not even close.
Gotcha, okay.
We don't have enough room in the total levy to increase one enough.
No, I understand that, but I just wanted to know if each individual of these, segregated fund or levies, if they're also capped by that 2.9, or if that's just the grand scheme.
Just the aggregate.
Yeah, and once again, the model can run all kinds of scenarios. This is if you were to add 5 million per year, it gets you to where you want to be. But that's not the ask. The ask is so at 3.5, and hopefully it's supported with. And just on this note, when you look at this tool, it's on the I guess on the left side of the screen, you can see how the fund balance was really, really high. There was a practice of the county then, at that time, it was way back before 2019, of putting more tax levy into the risk funds just because of the fact that it pays those claims. What if you had a catastrophic claim or what they call a nuclear settlement? That could really handicap the county. The philosophy was build up this fund, and that way the fund's better protected, so you don't have to tap into other sources. But that obviously that changed. This was able to spend down to help with the county's efforts to reduce the tax levy, to live off that fund reserve. So that's why you see that shift in the from the earlier years of the model, and that's basically just drawn down the accumulated fund balance that was built up through the property tax levy.
Any other questions? Then we get to go, capital plan update.
Do you have a consensus on moving forward?
Oh, okay, folks, I didn't get a consensus. Do we have a consensus to move these four forward? Budget review.
As long as we also move them forward with some of the concerns that were raised or comments that were
Yeah, I
raised
think
about.
just for broader discussion, right,
Well, it goes
is what's
to the next-
happening.
It
Right.
gets kicked back to finance.
Right.
Understood, but again, I
All
want
right.
everybody to have everything.
Fair enough.
It's gonna keep it short.
Okay, I gather that's a yes.
Yes, do you need a motion for that?
Go ahead.
Okay, good morning.
Don't pay attention.
Don't pay attention, that's all.
They're here. but-
Morning, I'm Lindsay Osborne, I'm the facilities coordinator. Tom couldn't be here this morning, so I'm gonna speak for him, or for our department. We'll start with the project in Crystal Lake. That's progressing nicely. For those who have been by it, you've seen a lot of work going on. This week, we had the structural steel get set in place. They are continuing doing the detailing work to the structural steel. The rough HVAC and the rough electrical, that should be completed beginning of next week or so. They have some rough plumbing, slab plumbing to do. Brick veneer work, that starts next week. So everything's progressing nicely there. We haven't had a lot of issues. I'm sure all of you guys have seen the updates I've been sending out for the parking lot, which now is substantially completed. They just have a
Parked in
few.
new space today, yes.
Did you? All right. So that project went very well. It finished almost 7 weeks earlier than what we had anticipated it. And then we have, let's see, we'll move over to the coroner's project. That, we have our pre-construction meeting scheduled for July 17th. And that is scheduled to begin in August. And then downstairs, we have the veterans office who's getting kind of their front entryway reworked to help with their clients. That pre-construction meeting is also July 17th. And that work is scheduled to start August 4th and should be wrapped up by September 1st.
Questions of?
Just a comment. Somebody should convey to the company that did the parking lot that they were amazing. I mean, I have never seen such happy people doing such physical work in the heat the way they did, and it's beautiful. It really is. They were amazing.
They did some like 12-hour days.
Yeah, Monday they were here
They were amazing.
from, I think, 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was after 8 o'clock when they left.
I mean, I had one of the guys actually literally come over and help me walk on the sidewalk because he was concerned. I mean, when's the last time anybody did that? Who was yeah. I just thought they did a nice job.
Thank you. I'll pass that on.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Yep.
You're off the hook.
All right.
HR, come on up. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to July, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of breeze through a few things that, we've been experiencing in human resources. The first was Pete graciously stood in for me last month when I was attending an IMRF, I would like to call it a town hall. We did, Chris, the HR director of DuPage County, hosted Brian Collins, the executive director of IMRF, Forest County HR professionals to come in and let them have it. Vent. Yeah, there's been a lot of issues since they launched their new system over a year ago. There's been huge delays. There's just been so many complaints. So we were able to get in front of him. Quietly sitting in the corner at that meeting was Gwen Henry, who is the DuPage County Treasurer, and she is also the board president of IMRF. So that's his boss. So good thing on that is we have seen some great improvements. Pensions are coming quicker. Responses are being more timely. So I think it was impactful. So really, really happy that we were able to do that. So They have also released their new annual budget or annual return. They are still 95.8% funded. So,
But that's because they also have the mechanism to force people who are underpaying to pay, right?
yes.
A little bit different than some of the other systems.
Yeah, they earned a 9.2% net investment return, which grew their assets by 3.2 billion. So,
It helps.
yeah.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
So yeah, so they're sitting very well, and that's good for the county because again, we're in line with a really good, strong pension. So, but happy to be part of that and you know, bring the concerns, you know, for the retirees in McKenna County. So there's that. Training. Pam had asked if I would bring forward a little response on our training that we did for new managers. We did a survey. Glad to say that Alessandra and I scored an 85%. In her book, that's probably not good enough, but she's an overachiever. I was thrilled that we had 85%. I would like to read one thing that, comment that was made that I think was very nice. The question was, do you feel more confident in your role as a manager? After completing, you know, our training. And it was yes, I feel more confident in my role as a manager after the training. The sessions provide practical tools and frameworks that I can apply directly to my day-to-day responsibilities, particularly in areas like team communications, motivation, performance management, and it also helped me better understand my leadership style and how to adapt it. So we worked a lot on, you know, you can't manage everybody the same. Everybody's a little different. You have to adapt. What works for one is not going to work for all. And what do you want to be as a leader? So we worked a lot on them as people as well as the rules. So it was all good.
Nicely done.
Yeah. So we're contemplating doing it again in the fall. We'll see what the interest is. We'll do some minor changes to the timing. I think that was a little of the concern, but I think it's beneficial to keep it going. So there's that. Wellness. I just wanted to give a shout to Deborah, our wellness coordinator. Her growth and response in the county has been significant. Her participation has been tripling every time she puts out something, an activity. Right now, we're in a wellness challenge.
Yeah, the walk challenge.
We're in the walk challenge. It's getting a little competitive.
Yeah.
Olive is gonna win. I'm betting on Olive, man.
So it's been fun. I think the thing that's really exciting to see is that we're crossing silos. Employees are getting to know other employees, and people are challenging each other, and it's just such a simple, inexpensive thing to do, but super rewarding. So, you know, shout out to her for that. We did a great blood drive. You know, we saved over 90 lives in a few hours of donating blood. So again, you know, big credit to her. So on that note, I do have your vacancy reports that you like to see. So if Pete wouldn't mind sharing those. I'm glad to say that the vacancy report is down. Jerry would probably say that's why budgets are up, because we're paying people. But if you look at the report overall, you know, right now we have 69 positions vacant. And we look at our trend, I think the biggest increase was from March until May, we were recruiting for 42 open positions. We hired 48 and we only processed 29. So normally it's been trending that we're almost like hiring as much as we're separating. So now we're seeing a trend that we're starting to retain. So you'll start to see this go down.
We're staffing up at Valley High too.
Staffing up.
Well, yeah, that's, yeah.
That was a big deal. Yeah.
Is there a reason for the correctional officers? Are we increasing
always that
staff
problem.
there, or that's
That's
just an
Our
ongoing?
available spots are remaining the same. They've had a big turnover. Some of their senior.
Yeah, retired, yeah.
But again, they've done their testing. I think there's some notes on there from Holly. you know, we did test them in February. And then they're gonna do another test in July. So,
Does that?
they have a lot of people retire, they have a lot of people that are potentially eligible to retire.
Yeah, again, that's because we hired. Is that affecting overtime there? Or is this an anticipated vacancy, or is it vacant now?
I'm not sure how that, I don't know if I can answer that
I think they
question.
do a pretty good job of anticipating, so
That's
I don't think their overtime is really going out of control. And remember, when we have a 20-year veteran retire, when we fill in, we're saving money.
I recognize that. I just, again, when I look at the report and I see that many, I don't know if they're vacant, or if again, it's anticipating because we have been informed someone's retiring in 4 months, right? Yeah.
We also had 3 deaths. So we have, you know, that, again, open positions in that area too, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, but again, like I said, I think overall, you know.
It's only 1 page.
Well, there's a little bit on the back, but yeah, there's not as much. But again, I like to see the trend that we're retaining. Turnover is very expensive. You know, when you're constantly replacing and restarting people, it takes them sometimes 6 months to get back up to speed. So, so we're glad to see that pace is slowing down a little bit for turnover. But yeah, overall, very productive, still busy, looking at benefits for 2026. I'll be bringing all that fun stuff together for budgets, and we can talk a little bit about it. But I did meet with IPBC last week. They came out and talked about our claims experience, kind of where we're at, where we're trending. Based on the market trend, for the PPO, we're right about at the market trend, but for the HMO, we're above. We've been running a little, they refer to as hot on our claims, we're running over 100%. So we're gonna look at a little bit bigger increase in the HMO, but we're looking at an alternative plan for the PPO as well. It's a little bit different model, but I think it would be favored by the employees. So we're looking at that to see if we can't bring that down a little bit.
When do we start negotiations?
Negotiations for the.
Do we have contracts coming up?
Nope, not till 2026.
Not till next year. Cool.
Yep. And that's the thing we have to be mindful as we look at new plans. The unions are always ready to negotiate. So, any questions for me? Thoughts?
Well, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Communications.
All right,
We got 1 sheet from you handed out today, thank you.
no problem. Good morning, I'm Lucy Schuler, Director of Public Affairs, and I'd like to update you all a bit on our communications efforts. So, month of June has been a good month, if I do say so myself. I was very excited to start chipping away at one of our communication strategic plans that I feel that we really need to bone up on a bit, and that is the research the latest best practices considering the Americans with Disabilities Act and explore methods to apply them. And we took advantage, and when I say we, I mean the communicators from the Division of Transportation, Division of Health, and County Administration attended a training at the City Hall of City of McHenry to learn from CMAP about new requirements coming for county governments like us at our size range, to make it so that we can be more inclusive and accessible to folks with disabilities online. So again, we learned a lot of new things, and we are looking forward to implementing them and working with other departments to help make us more inclusive of a county for all. We also did share what we learned with our PIO network, and we had our partners at the 22nd Judicial Circuit come in and talk about the different ways that they've been exploring accessibility online, because after all, we all know the courts have been very progressive with moving different court proceedings online and making it so that all people can attend. It was a very good presentation, and we're pleased to have their support. I'd also like to talk about some collaborations that we've had across different departments, but before I do that, every good lawyer knows that occasionally you need a demonstrative exhibit. 1, 2, And 3. All right, so just had to have a little bit of drama there. But no, I was very happy that we had several stories that we encouraged, the Northwest Herald to, explore, come out in the papers. The one was the ribbon cutting for the new memory care center. And again, it's good to let the public know that we accomplished what we set out to do, that the heart of the valley has been opened and that we now have residents coming in to get the services that they need. So you'll see that in one of these stories. Another one, I happened to be whispering into one of the reporters here, hey, this is a good story, I can hook you up, was in regards to Andy Brose, the gentleman from the Division of Transportation that y'all issued a proclamation for. And again, he's a fantastic guy, 42 and a half years working here for the county, and they did a fantastic story on him, depicted with his signs that he helped put together for our county. Finally, if you saw the paper this morning, you'll notice that the Community Division's Partner of the Year Award story was also featured in the Northwest Herald. So again, it's good, I'm pleased to see the Community Development Division's, partnerships with the Home of the Sparrow be recognized. And yes, Member Altef, you managed to evade all pictures in the Northwest Herald.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Also, County Administration was pleased to work with the Emergency Management Agency to distribute a field day news release. And we also did a news release for the Finance Department on their latest award. Their latest distribution of the popular annual financial report. Sorry, Carrie, I'm anticipating an award there because you guys are just fantastic. All right, so communications of notes. I would also like to bring to your knowledge that Sheriff Tatelman was on both CBS News Chicago and NBC5 Chicago, and I've put links to his videos, where he encouraged the public to slow down, put the phone down, buckle up, drive sober, and stay alert. And this was in response to the 3 accidents that occurred in McHenry County within 12 hours. So again, if you would like to see that messaging, you can click the links. Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't give a huge shout out to the Department of Health for their collaboration on the Operation Dropbox. Combined with Lake County, they shattered records, bringing in 11,427 pounds of goods for area veterans. So great job for them, and it was a pleasure to see their joint release come out. That being all said, we've had an increase in followers across the different platforms. You can see the numbers yourselves. But we've also had a good month as far as our reach. On Facebook alone, we reached 120,000 accounts this month. Over the course of the year, we've reached over 700,000 accounts, and we've had over 3 million impressions. I would like to remind you all that this is not paid. This is just us, and this is only in over a 6-month period. That being said, I would like to discuss the highest reaching Facebook post that we had this month. And no, I am not being paid to say this by our Deputy County Administrator. Once again, the public was alerted that there are going to be spongy moth traps deployed across the county, and the traps themselves were pictured. And we, informed the public that, what the traps are for, and that we urged them caution not to touch them and to allow our citizen scientists to do their important work in collecting data for the county on the populations of spongy moths. Thank you to our citizen scientists. That post reached over 72,000 accounts. So again, we have a series of important posts that went out this week. I mean, if there's any you would like to ask for further details, please let me know. Any questions?
Anyone? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll leave these papers here in just one.
Love it. All right, last but not least is County Administrator. Adam, can you come up quick? I know we're running late, but I wanted Adam to give you a 1-minute update on, we've had some very significant changes in how our federal government is changing our access to fiber dollars.
Yeah, since the last meeting, which I apologize I wasn't able to be here for, but Pete gave you guys an update. A lot's happened. As of June 6th, Washington dropped a policy change to all 50 states on the BEAD program, if you all know what that is. Okay, I apologize if if you read the administrator's report, some of this might be old to you, but all 50 states had to rescind all the preliminary awards, of which we had several in McHenry County. They changed the scoring parameters for BEAD. They changed, they changed pretty much everything in the program. Long story short, I'm sorry. But they also had required all states to do what they're calling a benefit of the bargain round. We didn't know what that meant when it was released. So since June 6th, the state has been working very hard to get their plan revised and reapproved in Washington. I'm happy to report that this past Monday, June 30th, Washington said, okay, Illinois, you are good to go. Illinois has removed Wave 1 and Wave 2, which you've probably been hearing about for 3 or 4 years now. That is gone. It is changed to this benefit of the bargain round. And what that really means is it's changed the priority broadband projects from primarily fiber to anything else that meets a really minimum standard of upload and download speeds. Unlicensed fixed wireless, low Earth orbit satellite, fiber are all on the same playing field, and it's what's going to be the lowest cost and maximize savings to the BEAD program. The good news is Illinois got their plan approved Monday. Yesterday, they opened up this benefit of the bargain round. It is going to run from yesterday through July 18th. That's it. That's when these new vendors have to get their plans to the state for what they plan to serve for BEAD and how. That's going to allow the state to then work until September 4th to have to go through what they already did, which is a deconfliction, make sure they're not overlapping or overreaching in terms of other people's areas or whatever. Hard to serve and local coordination requirements have been eliminated. So all the letters that Chairman Bueller sent, the 2 resolutions that you passed last year, they don't mean anything anymore. That hurts me a little bit because all the work we've done. But the state has to submit that new plan to the federal government by September 4th. The NTIA in Washington has committed that they will then take another 90 days to review and approve the plan. However, Washington has also said that they pretty much retain the right to remove anything that they don't agree with in terms of what needs to be served at their discretion only. So it doesn't matter what we say, it doesn't matter what the state says, doesn't matter what the vendors say, NTIA can say no. I primarily think that's going to impact the community anchor institutions. The positive news here is they did reduce parks, child care centers, and community-based organizations have all already been removed from the community anchor institution category. I don't believe that that's going to impact Valley High and DOT, who are also community anchor institutions. I don't know that anymore, though. They can be as specific as to say, no, Valley High, because you're publicly funded nursing home, you're out, you should be providing it yourself. The state did the good news, the positive, the silver lining, I guess, or what's left for us is the state's midstream true-up that they did over the past 6 months still qualifies. I reached out to the vendors we've been working with who were preliminarily awarded in McHenry County, and they have indicated to me that they are going to immediately accelerate their Wave 2 to meet this July 18th deadline, and they are going to resubmit, which they can do. They are going to resubmit everything that was preliminarily awarded in Wave 1. That's where we are as of yesterday afternoon or this morning.
Will there be anyone new that would be requesting to be a provider?
They can be. Wave 2, this is everybody now. Wave 1, you had to meet these hard to reach or hard to serve areas.
You had to have a certain number of hard to serve
to submit in Wave 1. Yeah. That was done. We had more in McHenry County than we thought we were going to get, but they were creative because they pulled from Boone and Lake and out of Wisconsin, and it just worked. But everybody else was open in Wave 2, so it's everybody we've already had and those we've already been working with, and then anybody else who has a plan going forward as long as they don't overlap.
So the question I would have is, once they're submitted from the state to the federal government, do we have any idea of what the criteria is for them to be able to say no, or how fast that's going to happen? Or if there's an appeal process? I mean, obviously I would ask all those dumb questions.
There is no known appeal process. NTIA has been very clear since June 6th that they reserve exclusive right to say up or down.
And without establishing any kind of criteria that we would have an idea, it's just...
Right, that's the positive. They established this criteria as they set it June 6th.
Okay.
The state's plan was approved. The state did their work to resubmit their program to fit that.
There are fewer criteria now.
Right. Right,
Okay.
and it was
That's
awarded
thank
to, and it was approved by Washington on Monday. So
They've removed criterion that
Right,
a little bit more
right.
Wild West.
Hopefully
it'll go faster.
And I don't think we would disagree with all of the changes that they made. There were some things that I don't think were positive in that they've eliminated the ability to. Fiber is still the preferred method. We heard that from the survey when we were going through the cohort. Even all the farmers here who are on Starlink say it's too expensive, all that. Fiber is still preferred here in Illinois and here in McHenry County, but the low-cost option has been eliminated, the middle-class option has been eliminated, though they have said that any provider of any vendor can come in and say, we will provide that, that's fine.
Okay, I get it.
Well, a lot's happened, yet nothing's happened.
We'll keep it on the agenda because we're gonna find out a lot in the coming months.
I apologize, a lot's happened, but nothing's happened. It's kind of one of those, and the last thing I'd say is we're probably about now forced to be 6 months or more behind where we thought we'd be, only because we had preliminarily awarded areas in McHenry County that could have started.
District 6, District 7, and District 8 are
Yeah.
really impacted.
Yeah, in the past month, in the next 30 to 60 days, we probably would have had contracts approved and people would have been starting to get into the ground. That's all been forced into December at the earliest.
We have no control over that, but yeah. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Question. When strategic plan, now, you approved it today, it's set to go to the COW meeting. What, do you think we should do some kind of a presentation overview or just leave it on the agenda and see if anybody wants to talk? We'll be ready.
I think you should be ready for it, but you've passed it out. You can show the old one versus the new one.
Okay.
You went
I'm good with
through
that.
line by line before here. I didn't see a reason to do it again here.
Okay. Obviously, budget is consuming a lot of our time these days, so I won't belabor that. Jail healthcare, that's a big one. Speaking of budget, had an open house last Friday for providers who might want to be our new jail healthcare provider.
How many ultimately end up showing up?
I think 4.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
They are due with submittals on July 18th, so we should have more information next meeting. Fiber, Adam did. We had another meeting with CMAP on their housing readiness program. The McHenry County Manufacturing Pathways Internship Consortium is well underway into their 4th year. We still have a little bit of ARPA money in that. As Scott and Alicia referenced, I think at your September 3rd Administrative Services meeting, we're going to try and do an AI overview on things that we see for 2026 in the county. I have a meeting with R1 at 10 o'clock this morning. Mark Picos and Shaylin are doing that, and I'll run over there in a moment. I had a meeting scheduled today with Representative Foster at 12:45. That was canceled. He's flown back to vote on a big, beautiful bill, maybe this evening.
That's something to do.
So we'll get that rescheduled. And yeah, just another interesting. Yesterday afternoon, I had a virtual meeting with Cecilia Carmen. She's a member of our Board of Health and the Lake County Sustainability Coordinator to talk a little bit about some of the things Lake County has done to eliminate single-use plastics in their organization. There's some curious ideas and some things that I will want to talk with you guys a little bit more about. Obviously, there's a real benefit to that, and sometimes there's cost, but sometimes there's not as much as you think, so we want to explore some of those ideas.
Yeah, that was a public health, and we directed them to you guys, so yeah.
We kicked it off yesterday. That's all I got.
Okay. Any questions of Pete? Not seeing any. Guidebook for elected officials.
Oh, yeah, Will. Will is our volunteer intern from Huntley High School this summer, and he's updated your guidebook, and we can just take a look at it. We'll talk more about it next time. Is that the plan?
That's right. Part of the next meeting is under the future topics. If your agenda permits, you can dive into it. I want to thank Will for taking that. This was originally adopted by the precursor to Administrative Services, Management Services Committee back in 2015. And it's really intended to give your appointed officials kind of an insight on how they need to operate, what they need to do, what some things they need to be aware of. Just keep in mind, as you appoint these individuals, they may have never held a public office before, so it kind of just gives a little bit of guidance on what they can do, what they can't do, what they should do. Will took it, reformatted it, updated it, checked all the links, made all some revisions, and, yeah, really, like, did a lot of work on it. So-
Did you learn anything doing it that you didn't know before?
I mean, I know a lot more about fiscal responsibility and
The Open Meetings
the
Act.
Open Meetings Act.
Okay, that's actually very good. Make sure you include that on any resume going forward.
And any other things from board members? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second. Okay. Pam made it, Eric seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.